I'd like to call the meeting to order for April 27th, 2020. Please stand for invocation, a moment of silence by Ms. LeBlanc.
Spring is here. I would like to think about spring of 2021 as a time of renewal, taking a minute to think about where we were this time, this exact day last year. Our lives were filled with uncertainty, fear, illness, and even death. This spring, there is a sense of relief, a sense of life moving forward again. We are slowly being able to see family we've missed and celebrate accomplishments. We are back in school 4 days per week. We all feel some sense of normalcy, families, students, teachers, and the town of Enfield. I'd like to end with a quote from the great Maya Angelou that I will keep in mind as I reflect on the past year. You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. Please remember that your difficulties do not define you. They simply strengthen your ability to overcome. Here is to a time of renewal, reflection, and moving forward. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America. Thank you. Fire evacuation. There's 2 exits out of the chamber, one to the rear of the chamber, out to the parking lot, and one to my left, your right, and and left down the rear stairs and out to the parking lot. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. LeBlanc?
Here.
Mr. Ryder?
Here.
Mr. Salazar?
Here.
Mrs. Thurston? Here. Mr. Ungary?
Here.
Mrs. Cushman?
Here.
Mrs. Hall? Here. Mr. LeBlanc? Chairman Krusell?
Here. Mr. LeBlanc had a previous engagement tonight, so. Number 6, board guests. Excuse me. 6A, recognize Luke Barnes. Mr. Drezick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today we have a very special guest. For the first time in a long time, we actually get to recognize a student, and we couldn't have picked a better one to have our first in-person student recognition as Luke Barnes, who's a senior at Enfield High School. And Luke participated in, I don't want to say this wrong, but the NAFME All Eastern Honors Ensemble on March 4th through the 6th. And we asked Luke to join us tonight to not just celebrate him, but to share with him his experiences and about his performance with the board. And I see that Mr. Rapucci is also here accompanying him. So the floor is yours, Luke.
How are you? Do you?
Just pull the mic up so they can hear you.
What should I say? Just anything?
Anything you wish.
So yeah, this was a great opportunity that happened in March. I had to apply for it. So they kind of had, if you had made it into all states, then they kind of compiled a list of everyone who had made it, and then they decided who, would be able to get into the NAFME program. At the beginning of March, we had a couple rehearsals. It took place from Thursday, and then we had another one on Friday, and then the final rehearsal was on Saturday. It was all virtual, so we weren't able to, unfortunately, be in person together. But we did record some recording the recordings of us playing, and they have compiled a video together on YouTube that just kind of recaps everything that we had worked on that weekend.
Excellent. Any questions from Miss LeBlanc?
I don't have any questions. I just have a few comments, and I can imagine how hard this was for you in your senior year. You did not, I'm sure this is not what senior year looked like for you at all, as far as music goes, but thank you for your tenacity and keeping going and being a part of this and making us proud. So congratulations to you, and good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Ryder.
I wanted to say congratulations as well. And as you are a senior, just ask what your plans are for the fall. What's next?
So I haven't totally decided on a school, but right now it's a school in New York, and then UConn is my other one. So in the next following days, obviously, because May 1st is nearing. And but yes, I will decide by then. And I plan to major in actuarial science.
No breaking news tonight, is that what you Mr. Ungar?
Yes, I'd like to say congratulations also,
Thank you.
and we're very, very proud of your achievement. Thank you.
And anyone else want to speak? Does anyone else from the audience want to speak? Say a few words. Come on up and either grab the handheld or just grab the handheld here. You gotta have it through the mic so they can hear you.
I had the distinct pleasure of working with Luke as band director for many years, and his older siblings across the program. He's just a fine young man and a great example for our community. He wouldn't say this, but he was sitting first chair, first seat in the clarinet section in this prestigious ensemble, which is outstanding achievement. Congratulations.
We're gonna clap for it.
I also want to recognize he now is a member of the orchestra at Enfield High School. Mr. Aaron Osview is here as a director to support Luke. And congratulations.
Thank you.
And if you could, Mr. Swanger has some comments he wants to say. If you could just switch places with him.
Yep. Thank you all.
All right. And now I can pull the mask off.
Yeah, just name and address and what.
All right, yes.
What do you
So,
represent?
Chairman Griselle, my name is Tony Swanger. I live at 30 Guinea Terrace here in Enfield. And so I come today because I currently serve as Enfield Instrumental Music Association's vice president. So I've been nominated for president for next year, so that'll be voted on next week. So I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. But I too wanted to offer congratulations to Luke Barnes. My daughter Ariana is a freshman in the Enfield High School band. She plays clarinet. As an 8th grader, she got to be in Luke's group. I think he was kind of like the section leader. So when they did the 8th grade night, when they performed at the one of the games, they went out on the, they performed with the band. And so as an 8th grader, he had an influence on her. She also is in the Springfield Youth Symphony, the Symphonia, and so she knows him from there as well. And so Luke is a great example for students, and we are very much proud of him. And I did submit to the board. I submitted to Chairman Griselle and the rest of you an email that also had letters from parents and students with examples of their experiences of why music is such an essential part of the education process. My daughter would throw stats and figures and things at you with how scholastic test scores are improved by those that are involved in music, and how the higher rate of college access, acceptance and all those kinds of things. But I just know from my own personal experience, my daughter was never big in sports. But the one thing she gravitated toward was music. And so I just believe that as a Board of Ed, and to you, Mr. Drezik, as well, that if we can continue to throw our full support behind the Enfield music programs, because one thing coming off of a pandemic, everybody thinks about, making sure our science and our STEM and all of those things are well funded and provided for. And everybody, I'm sorry, even myself as a football fan, we're missing the football seasons and those kinds of things. So sports will be coming back. But let's not forget the music program and the students that do so much, like Luke Barnes has done, to represent Enfield very well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, can I give one little plug? Do I have time to give one little plug? Our website is EIMAEagles.com. It's EIMA Eagles.com. And this Sunday, we have a golf tournament, and we have the ability to accept online donations. So if anybody would like to participate in the golf tournament, or like to participate in the dinner, or just make a donation online, EIMAEagles.com is the place you can go and sign up for that. So this Sunday, May 2nd at 12 noon at Grassmere Country Club is our annual golf tournament. It is the first in-person fundraiser since the pandemic, so it would be great to see some support from the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so with that being said, we'll move on to B, board member recognition, and Mr. Rutledge was supposed to be in person. Are you on the line, Mr. Rutledge? I guess not. All right, so he was supposed to be in person, but something came up, and I guess he didn't. He was going to try to call in, but I guess that also didn't work. So we'll hold that out for another meeting, and we'll do that at a future meeting. So with that, we move to number 7, Superintendent's Report. Mr. Drezek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it's been about 13 months when I've been able to sit here and say, I got good news. So I'm not going to blow it. The first bit of good news is these reports are going to get a heck of a lot shorter from here on out. You're welcome, Ms. Thurston. The good news is that we're back. Last week, Andy and I, actually this is more of a confession, did something kind of selfish where we broke our own rules and spent the most part of the week that we could actually walking around our schools again and getting the opportunity to see kids, see staff members. And I'm not going to use the term normal because no one knows what normal that word means right now. But if you take away the masks and you take away some of the plastic barriers, the plexiglass, and maybe the directions that are, pasted to the floor, it felt right. It felt like school again. And then going into as many classrooms, and I'll apologize to the teachers now because I was unannounced, and I wreaked havoc. And any class I went into, the first question I would ask the kids were, are you excited to be back? And the answer was overwhelmingly yes. But more important than that, the level of enthusiasm was only outmatched by our teachers and our staff members. Our folks were more excited to have their kids back in front of them than I could have anticipated walking through those buildings for the first time in a little over a year. None of that would have been possible if we didn't have a lot of people who put a lot of time and effort and energy into making this happen. So there's too many people to name and thank individually, so I'm just going to do a blanket thank you to everyone with a few minor exceptions. One, obviously, is a group of people who don't often get thanked, and they get overlooked at times and sometimes taken for granted even by the two of us. And that's our administrators, because in order to make this happen on the 19th and have vast majority of our kids show up, they had to move mountains in order to do it. And there's no principal or assistant principal or dean or coordinator or director's appreciation week. There should be, and if there is, I got it wrong, and Kathy could tell you I'm not good at those types of holidays. But that said, our principals literally they never pushed back on us when I told them this is what we're doing. They knew there was going to be a lot of logistical nightmares in order to make it happen, but they never pushed back. They said, we need to get our kids back and we'll figure it out. I also have to thank our buildings and ground staff, because when I say our administrators move mountains, our B&G staff literally moved mountains, and they built tents and they moved furniture and they made sure our buildings were up and running. So I know he doesn't like this, but usually the first call I make to somebody when something goes wrong is to Mark Gar. But in this case, I wanted to be able to say something positive for the first time to Mark out of the gate was thank you. Thank you to you and your entire staff. Any response I get from Mark is, no matter how crazy it is, it's always been, if it's good for kids, we'll figure it out. And he always does. So it's great to have a partner in order to do that. And the last thank you is actually for the 9 of you. And I know there's not 9 here today, but I think what often gets overlooked sometimes for the 9 of you is that you guys are volunteers. And because you attain your spots often by being elected or on a ballot, sometimes there's this misconception that you guys are politicians and things along those lines. What we see are 9 community volunteers who are trying to volunteer their time for, you all know what the salary is, to help serve your community and create the best educational opportunity for those kids in your community. And you don't get recognized for that. And I know over the last 13 months, there's decisions that I had to make to get us to this point that some of you didn't necessarily agree with. And you said so either publicly and a lot of times privately, and I wanted to take this moment to say that I appreciated that, even if it didn't see eye to eye. I respected your opinions, but the thing I respected the most was, irregardless if you agreed with what I was doing, you still supported it. And we wouldn't be in a position last Monday to bring back as many kids as we did if it wasn't for the full support that we had from the 9 of you. So I wanted to take the opportunity on behalf of Andy and myself to thank you guys, and also to remind you that we missed Board Appreciation Week last month. So we're going to make it up to you, but last month our kids weren't back yet, so we wanted to hold off. So, but thank you to the 9 of you and those who aren't here. Hopefully you're listening in. This is I told him I'm going to try to be as quick as I can. Alex, if you're watching or listening, now's the time I got one slide for you. And I want to apologize to Mr. Salazar and Ms. Hall, because you've been asking me this question consistently for the last couple of months, and I held off on giving you the information until I had rock solid data for you. So this is the only slide, no more numbers, no more percentages, this is it. But I wanted to give you and the public an opportunity to see where we are, and this is as of yesterday. So as you can see at the high school, we've got about 58% of our kids that have returned in person, 4 days a week, obviously. It's higher at the middle school, but you'll see the numbers increasingly higher as we get to our younger students. So overall, we're doing a lot better than we anticipated, but it's about a little over 10% of our kids that are still working full remote. But I think what we're anticipating is that as those who are working remotely, as they see that, to be quite frankly, we know what we're doing, we're hopeful that those numbers will increase. But I wanted to give you guys, and I can break this down more for you if you have further questions, irrespective of this meeting, but I wanted to at least give you an overview as to where we were and what the numbers are for the students that are returning in person. Excuse me. Very quickly, to give a vaccine update. I know I get this question a lot. I can't give you a definitive number for several reasons as to how many staff members are vaccinated. But if you were to ask me, hey, Chris, how many staff members are vaccinated? I can tell you comfortably a lot. And I can use an example for that. The last week alone on Friday, we had a case breakout at one of our schools that required us to quarantine about 45 people.
Oh.
Of those 45 people, okay, you could take that down, Alex, so we could see Ms. Hall again. Unless anybody cares about the numbers anymore. Of that situation where we had to quarantine 45 people, we had to quarantine one staff member. Over the weekend, we had 2 separate cases in one building where 2 classrooms, entire classrooms were quarantined. In that particular building, we had 0 staff members that were required to quarantine. Those are just 2 examples that over the past week, we've had a number of cases where students, and you guys all see the robocall about, there's a new letter from me about a case. What I can tell you is that if those cases happened in January, 5 of our schools would be closed right now for 2 weeks. So although it seems like forever that I sat up here and I was, the vaccine whisperer about the importance of getting the vaccine into our staff members, yes, it was, and it's still, and always will remain, the most important factor is offering our staff members that level of protection from the virus. But the added benefit of that is that once you are fully vaccinated, you are no longer required to quarantine. And I distinctly remember sitting here with a message that I hope didn't get interpreted that was for the 9 of you. It was really for anyone who would listen, particularly in Washington or Hartford, to say, if you want us to open our buildings, vaccinate our staff. And I appreciate the chairman forcefully repeating that several times on my behalf, sometimes even misinterpreted about our frustration with the process. And Walter has been a staunch supporter of that. I'm not saying that as in I told you so. I'm saying that we didn't have a magic pill, but we knew the only way to open our buildings and keep them open was make sure we could staff them. And it's working. So I don't know if it's 80%, 90%. I can't share people's personal information. To be quite honest, we don't know, because people did choose to get vaccinated on their own, not necessarily through our clinic. But it worked because you haven't gotten an emergency email from me on a Sunday night that says X, Y, and Z schools are closed this week. So this is all positive, and we hope that we're building upon that going further. While we're on the subject of vaccines, as you know, students or anybody that's age 16 and above is eligible for the vaccine if they choose. Fortunately, students who are 16 to 18 are only eligible for the Pfizer vaccine. And because of our partnership with Trinity, that's the only flavor they serve. So we got lucky once again by having a partnership with Trinity Health at the Enfield Annex. And thanks to Teresa and Dave from Trinity Health, they offered to hold a student vaccination clinic for anyone who's 16 or over, with obviously with parental permission, and in certain cases you have to have a parent accompany the student. But on Wednesday, May 12th, is an Enfield student-only vaccine clinic at the Annex. They are closing the public portion of the vaccine clinic so that all the available doses are for our kids if they choose. When we sent out the original survey to see who was interested, we had about 300 reply that they were interested. The numbers have gone down, and we don't know if that's because the vaccine is more readily available now. People can go get it on their own. But as of this point, we have to thank Trinity. They secured over 550 doses for our Enfield kids. What that means is anyone who gets vaccinated through us, and I'm not trying to push people to get it. That's a personal choice, and I respect that. Some people aren't comfortable with vaccinating themselves or their children, and that's fine. But I wanted to make sure that we at least offered it. If you were to get the vaccination through us, the first dose is on May 12th. Your second dose is on June 2nd, which you can all pull out your calendars. 14 days from June 2nd is June 16th, which coincidentally is the last day of school. But what that means for any student who gets vaccinated with us, you're fully vaccinated by June 16th. I think Luke has left, but I'll ask him to remind his classmates. And this is a message particularly for seniors and for senior parents. My biggest fear has gone from reopening schools and vaccination clinics to what do we do on June 20th when, God forbid, there's an exposure and one of our seniors isn't able to participate in graduation ceremonies. So although I cannot force anybody, and legally we can't, and I wouldn't, that's a personal choice, we wanted to make sure we gave every student the option to get themselves fully vaccinated, because if you are exposed on June 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, or 20th, as long as it's after the 16th, you could still come to graduation. There is no quarantining requirements for you. So that's the plan right now with Trinity. We sent out another reminder to folks that we kind of have to give them a head count. The numbers are going down a little bit, so we're hopeful that tonight's message will actually get parents to listen and say, you know, if I'm on the fence and I'm not quite sure if I really want to take the vaccine or not, or have my student take the vaccine or not, there's an additional benefit besides protection from the virus. There's the ability to partake in events and not have that worry of I've got to quarantine for 10 days and I won't be able to participate. With regards to while we're on the subject of seniors as well as juniors, I can't give the details. I promised I wouldn't. But the administration at Enfield High is actually securing the details with students tomorrow. But by the end of the week, Enfield High School will announce the details of both a junior and a senior prom. The folks at Enfield High School have been working around the clock, as well as not just the administration, but especially our nurse Jess over there has been involved in all these conversations, making sure that if we have an event, that doesn't get shut down. So as far as finding a location and making sure we're meeting all the requirements and giving the kids the best opportunity we can. So I asked them, can I promise that there will be a junior and senior prom, and just say that the details are coming, and the folks at Enfield High School said I could say that much. So I'm not giving you the details. Those will be coming by the end of this week. And they're actually meeting with kids tomorrow to kind of secure some of the final details on it. But the good news is that our kids are going to have a prom if they're interested. There might be kids who don't want to go, and that's okay too. I can tell you, as a parent of a senior girl, daughter, who has a dress in her closet that is already altered from last year and her junior year, is not getting a prom at her high school. So the fact that the school works so diligently to give these kids the opportunity is greatly, greatly appreciated. And I'm getting quickly, as far as graduation, and just going back to the prom, I know there's a lot of questions that are coming your way about proms and events. And I also understand that the governor has made announcements with regards to lifting mandates throughout the state, particularly in the month of May, which is great news. Just don't get too excited. Some of those don't apply to us. So I have a weekly call, as you know, with the Department of Public Health and the State Department of Education. The state DPH and the State Department of Ed on April 9th sent a list of guidelines for end-of-year activities, such as proms and graduations, to all local districts back in April. All you board members I forwarded a copy of that to you. As of this morning, those are still the standing requirements that we have to adhere to. I also asked Mr. Barassa, and he did this morning, to put those guidelines on our website. So anyone watching at home doesn't think we're just making up the rules as we go along. Those are the rules. Those are what we have to play by. One of the things that's prevalent in the document is the suggestion from the state that we try to move these events deeper into the year if possible, with the hope that as more people are vaccinated, as these events are outdoors, as the transmission rate comes down, that these events will have increased likelihood of happening and happening uninterrupted. So that was one of the things that we really focused in on back in April was, can we alter the dates so that we don't have to worry about pulling the plug on some of these events for these kids? But the guidelines are up there for anyone that wants to see them. They haven't changed as of this morning. All we were told was, stay tuned. Doesn't do good when you got to get a dress altered. I get it. I understand that. But what I can tell you is there will be events. They're planning them. You'll get the details this week. The last question I get a lot about is, what are we going to do about graduation? Right now, those same rules apply. I understand. It appears that May 12th or May 19th, everybody can go to a ball game. You don't have to wear a mask. There's all that stuff. Right now, we can't play by those rules. So this is what I can tell you. It is still my intention that those kids are going to walk down that hill on June 22nd, and if it's raining, June 23rd, and if it's raining, June 24th. But the seniors at Enfield High School are going to graduate at Enfield High School. I don't know what it's going to look like at this moment because we don't know all the rules, but we are making plans and adjustments as we go, as we find out. I know there's a lot of questions about what will the setup be? How many people can participate? Those things we just don't know at this moment, so I'm asking for patience. What I can assure you is our intention is to walk down that hill and to make it the best celebration for these kids as humanly possible. As soon as I know what it's going to actually look like, you guys will know very shortly after that, because trust me, I understand the anxiety when it comes to graduation. We want this information out as quickly as possible because we don't enjoy getting the phone calls from people who are anxious anyway. So we will get it out to you as soon as we know. But the challenge is if we make a decision now and then the rug gets pulled out from us, the last thing I want to do is say, yep, we were kidding. You're not going outside or you got to go inside. We don't know what it is. Right now, the plan is they're all telling us if you plan things outside, that's your best shot. So that's what we're shooting for. And that's what our intentions are at the moment. I just wanted to update the entire board. I know it's been a while since we talked, but we actually have a meeting scheduled with leadership in CABE next week to begin the board's equity works. Just wanted the board to be aware of that. That meeting's going to take place next week. More information on that will follow, but it's good that we're finally getting that initiative up and running and on its feet. And there's a lot of work to do in that area, as we know. And last thing, or two, sorry, this one's not my fault, Stacy. I got a question before I got here today that I have to address. And then I'm going to end with more good news. I know there's a lot of people that are getting questions about our absentee policy now, with kids not having the ability to come to school. There isn't a great answer to this. I'm just going to be honest. And I'm not going to point fingers at anybody. I'll point them at myself. My own kids, when they were younger, were very good at figuring out how to manipulate my wife and I about when they didn't want to go to school. What sick buttons to push, what tummy ache buttons to push, all that stuff. Unfortunately, what we started to see, because remote option is so prevalent now and it's so easy, that there was a lot of absenteeism. And a lot of those times with my own kids, we would allow the kids to stay home, and then we realized not soon after that, well, they probably could have made it, or why they're running around in the afternoon when they didn't feel well this morning. I know the world's a little bit different now. One of the big challenges we're having, particularly at the elementary level, is at the last minute getting a notification that, well, my son or daughter's not going to come in today, they're just going to log in. and not realizing the impact that that has on the entire class, and particularly on what the teacher has to do. And quite frankly, the catch up is actually harder with the kid not knowing they're going to be on remote that day and then having to catch that student up either on the Wednesday or prior. So we've actually, and we've gone back and forth on this for quite some time, but what we finally settled on with obviously the input of our administrators was, no, we also understand there might be some hypocrisy that if we quarantine you, we expect you to be on remote. So to put it as simply as I can, if we send you home, then we expect you to log in. If you're staying home, you don't need to log in. Just like pre-COVID, if your son or daughter was sick, it was a sick day. Trust me, the teachers know how to get your son or daughter caught up. But because of having, and we said this earlier when we were talking about what the format was going to look like, having this kind of a la carte of, well, today I want to go in, tomorrow I don't want to go in, it's having an adverse effect on everybody in the classroom, and our teachers are having a hard time keeping up. So we've kind of gone back to the real basics of, if we send you home, yes, we expect you to log in. If your son or daughter can't come in for whatever reason, we understand that, just like they would pre-COVID. You called out sick, we'll get the work home, we'll make sure that your son or daughter gets caught up. But having you on the screen when we didn't expect you there is having an adverse impact on making sure that the entire classroom can get organized. So I understand it's not a great answer. That's one of the things that you just don't know how to plan out when you're going through a pandemic. But in order to get us through the remainder of this year, that's what we found through our, and this the request on this actually originated with our classroom teachers, because our classroom teachers were really struggling with, they expected 10 kids, unexpectedly there's only 7, and now they've got to do double duty to try to get those other 3 kids up and running, and then there's tech issues and all that stuff. So we're asking parents, I know as a parent you think, well, it's easy, just let my kid log in. Well, yeah, logistically that sounds easy. A whole other world, as you all know, about running a classroom that is harder to do. So that's where we are on that. And the last thing, because I broke the rules and I had so much fun doing it, and I'm sorry for the general public, this isn't for you. This is the one perk these guys get, is being unpaid volunteers in their community. I know a lot of you have been itching to get back into schools. I know a lot of times throughout the year, especially during this time of year where you're asked to read the classrooms or come in and see an assembly. I'm going to lift the moratorium for board members to visit starting next week if you choose. All I will ask is that you sort of do it by appointment. So let the principal know. I'm sure the principals will all welcome you back in, but don't just show up and say, Dredzik said I can come in, because then I'm going to get in trouble. So if you want to reach out to a principal and say, is there an opportunity for me to read? Hopefully it's outside, so it makes it easy for everybody. But I can tell you that they all miss seeing you, and they were over enthusiastic about seeing us, which says a lot. So that said, that concludes the superintendent's report, and that should be the last one that's beyond 10 minutes for the remainder of the year.
Back to the going back into school. Should we run it through Kathy as well? Just let Kathy know that we're.
Yeah, if you'd let Kathy know you're going, so that way, if I get a call saying, well, did you know Walter's
Yeah.
coming?
So
Just so that, we don't want people to get the impression, again, sorry to the general public, I know people are itching to get into buildings. We can't just carte blanche let members of the public in right now. But as board members, you are volunteers in the schools with an expectation that you'll have an opportunity to interact safely. And as long as it's by appointment, we're trying to ease up a little
just copy
bit.
Kathy on it. If you send them an email or something, just copy Kathy on it. Okay. So we will move to audiences, number 8. A reminder that you come up and say your name and address for the record, and I'll time you, and just refrain from personalities.
Kelly Jackson, 30 Mead Lane. So, Mr. Salazar, you made a comment during your Board of Ed comments on March 23rd in response to the parents that have gone before all of you. You stated, I guess I would like to make a couple of points. 1, whether it's known to the members of the audience or not, we cannot engage in dialogue during these meetings with members of the audience. There are matters legally we are precluded from discussing openly with members and anybody for that matter. But it is not capable of engaging in that type of dialogue that I believe some of you are expected to have during these meetings. This is just not the forum for it. Now, I do invite those that are interested in about my personal perspective or have a conversation with me to do so. My contact information is on the website, district website, and I would welcome the opportunity to meet with any of you with the understanding that when I speak, it's from my perspective as an individual. I cannot speak for the board. Like, end quote, that's exactly what you said. So I emailed you March 26th and asked you where you stood since you couldn't do it in public. March 27th, I got a response from you asking me who I was and what specific stance I was referring to. March 28th, I responded with my name and got a specific on what stance I was speaking of. No response. So on March 30th, I reached out again, to which I got no response. So you can't answer where you stand with our kids as a person of color and helping our children. It's funny you say that you are willing to talk outside on your stance as a person of color, but yet you don't. But I will say, you did not hesitate to use your ethnicity when running for the board. Taco Tuesday, meet, greet, and eat sound familiar? Was that your way of reaching out to the Hispanic community to get votes? So what it is you will use your person of color status when it's convenient for you, but not for our kids. Thanks for that understanding.
He should have been interrupted and
Thank you. Anyone else? I declare public communications closed. Number 10, unfinished business. No, I'm sorry. I always forget that. Board member comments, Ms. LeBlanc may start.
Okay, Superintendent Jurezic, thank you for touching on the absence piece of it, and the prom update is such great news. I have to say that I had faith in the powers that be at Enfield High that they would do anything in their power to come through for the students, and I think I actually used the term over the last month that, Enfield Public Schools has not let us down yet, even though we haven't agreed with some of the decisions about, maybe extending us staying in hybrid or whatnot. And they're not going to do that now. So I'm really appreciative for all the people that worked on this, more than likely on their own personal time, to get something for the kids. And I'm really excited to hear about what that's going to be. Again, it's great news. One of the questions I did have, so if we have students, that are currently getting vaccinated, that are getting vaccinated prior to the clinic. And then once they complete their 2 weeks, should they notify the Enfield High nurses so that if they are addressed as I don't know how it works. Should they send them the vaccine card? Should they take it to their vaccine card to the school nurse so that if they get a call that they're a close contact, the nurse can go in their file and see that they've been identified, they've completed their 14 days after their second shot?
Maybe you might have been listening into a Hartford area call I had this afternoon, and we had that same discussion as do we take kids. There are some districts that are testing kids going into events and things like that we're fortunate we don't have to do because of our size and when the events will take place. That said, that we don't necessarily know. What we're hopeful that people will, if they are willing to share that with us and share it with the nurse, we would absolutely welcome that, because again, that would help in the event there's an exposure in school that you wouldn't be required to quarantine, especially as we're getting into I don't want to say award season, but activity season for as limited as they may be. So we would welcome that if people are willing, but we can't require it at this point.
Right, okay. But if you have taken the steps to get your student vaccinated and you want to share that with the school nurse, then you can feel free to do so.
You can feel free to do that. You can.
And then the school
nurses
nurse
will be welcome to hear those conversations.
Okay, and then the school nurse would do whatever she has to do to notate that. And I'm assuming you should have your vaccination card so that she can verify that it was
Correct.
That was complete. Okay. I want to see if there's anything else. I think that's it for tonight. Like I said in my invocation, I'm seemingly having a better, fresh attitude as spring is approaching and the days are getting longer. And it looks like our positivity rate is getting down, and we are starting to be able to celebrate things we haven't been able to celebrate in a year. So as we enter into May, I hope everybody continues to have a good spring and things continue to look up for us. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Ms. Hall, would you like to go now?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. First of all, I want to congratulate all of the students who are on the honor roll at both JFK and Enfield High. I am very impressed with you, and it seems that many of you have been on the honor roll the entire year. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize Grace Ferris and Andrew Hervin for being the 2021 CAS-CIAC Enfield Scholar Athlete. Congratulations to all. I have also been rather impressed with what the legislature and our governor have been doing. They seem to have been keeping the school systems in their thoughts at all times. How that will end up finally, we won't know until the session is over. But two things that I have been impressed with is that the governor has indicated he's going to support pre-K for summer school. And another area that I have been concerned, the legislature has been focusing on things like reading, and has started out having the thought that we should have a whole reading separate unit within the state so that every school has an approved reading method. And now the more recent one has to do with dyslexia, which is one of the areas that I've been concerned about for years. We originally had a statute that said schools have to identify dyslexia. There was no requirement that they do anything about it. This particular bill, number 6517, will require all teacher preparation courses to be supported by the State Board of Education to be required to teach teachers how to deal with children who are dyslexic beyond just recognizing they exist. And so I'm very impressed with what the legislature has been focusing on this year, and I hope they follow through on some of it. Thank you.
All set, Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Thurston? No comments. Mr. Ryder?
I have a quick question through the chair to the superintendent. Thank you for opening up the doors potentially for the 9 of us to visit. I know 2 of us specifically are mentors. I was wondering if that was something else that might be on the table, if not now, but soon, or at least by the fall, that we can open up for mentors as well, now that all adults should be vaccinated at this point or soon.
Actually, our intention is that if people are willing and there's an appropriate time that the principal can designate to meet with their mentee, then yeah, I think our kids can use all of the adult interaction they possibly can get at this point. So I'm open to it as long as we can stay within the frameworks of what we're permitted to do.
Okay, so my notes for this week, I wanted to thank the folks at Kite for a couple of things. One, for the beautiful sign right outside the town hall here when you're at the intersection of Route 5 and Elm. There's this sign that folks rent, that businesses rent, that promote things that happen here on the town green. But Kite has put up a sign thanking our Enfield Public School staff, our teachers, our administrators, everybody. So thank you, Kite, for that sign. Also, thank you to Kite for kind of taking the lead and running with our transition to kindergarten program that's been going on for several weeks, which first included picking up all your literature as an incoming parent this fall at Stowe. They had a couple of different pickup days, which included flyers from everything on how to join your K2 PTO to where you're going to find your bus schedules this fall, the administrators' names, some of the teachers' names for the kindergarten teachers. Just last week, I know Mr. Drezik was on this call as well, where we got a chance to speak to the incoming parents, an event normally held in person at one of the auditoriums here in town, but that was virtual. That was a fantastic event. It's kind of like when the high school put together that award show last year because they had to, but it's almost like doing it that way might be maybe not the best way to do it because you always want to be in a room with other parents, but as an alternative way of doing it, because what if that Wednesday night at 6 o'clock you couldn't go to JFK? What if your incoming kindergartner's already playing soccer, softball, t-ball, already in a music class, etc.? I think, like the award show last year, that is a great way to do it two ways. So ideally, we'd want everybody there in person at the JFK or the high school auditorium, but if that can't happen, to have this as an option is huge, because I could see the parents on the screens where a lot of them, the little ones, are sitting on the couch, with mom and dad listening. I don't know what they thought it was, but you could see like the excitement in their eyes. And I know that we had, there was over 70 participants on there, excluding the speakers that were on. There were 67 to 70 different parents that were signed on. And like I said, a lot of them had a young child to the right or left on the couch watching this great kite Zoom call. So thank you to everybody involved with that. Teacher Appreciation Week is next week. So I would ask anybody that's listening that knows how important the PTOs are to me and the parent volunteers, if you don't know what your PTOs are planning for next week, and they're all planning stuff, please reach out, see what you can do to help, or to, if they're finishing making something that's going to get left outside for the teachers, maybe you can help, button it up this weekend, because we always need to have Teacher Appreciation Week. But especially this year, we couldn't do anything last year. Everything was virtual. So I had a few suggestions, but they start with reach out to your school's PTOs, because I already know that there's stuff in the works and you can probably just help at this point. But things that you could do that don't need to be in person. You could create a little video on your phone of the kids thanking Mrs. So-and-so and my fourth grade teacher for how she's helped your son or daughter this year, and send a video and email it to them. Send them a gift card to a digital gift card to anything from Starbucks or Dunkin' to maybe Calm or Headspace, like an app where they could just meditate for a few minutes and forget that day's headache. Other suggestions, maybe to send in little seed packets. It's that time of year where things will grow. Surprise your teacher with, some of her favorite things. I know one thing that we always did at the PTOs that I manage is I'd survey the staff and I'd say, what's your favorite animal or your favorite color? So even the younger kids could just do a drawing or write a poem or just something. Let's all make that commitment to. And they don't have to be gifts. They could, like I said, they could be drawings or poems or letters or a little video to say thank you, because I think that's so important, especially this year. And again, Teacher Appreciation Week is nationally, it's next week. It's always the first full week of May. I just hope that, everybody takes a minute to do something for our staff, even if it's, just your classroom teacher, But again, reach out to the PTOs, because they're all planning something, and maybe you can just help with that. So I wanted to mention Teacher Appreciation Week, and it's very timely that that's next week, and I'm very proud of our staff. Thank you for reviewing the attendance policy. I had some questions on that. I wanted to mention that Enfield PTO is updated with all the in-person dates now through June 16th. Again, there's a page for every school from Stowe to EHS that mentions your in-person dates the rest of the year, any recent principals notices, any notes from the PTO. It's all there on one page, enfieldpto.com. Go across the top of the page, click on your school. It's also great if you are the parent of a current 2nd, 5th, or 8th grader, because you can just go to the next tab, and if you're at HMS and you're going to end up at Eli Whitney this fall, you just click the next tab and you can start seeing notes from that principal and get a feel for what's going on in that school. We don't know how summer is going to look, and orientations and school visits and how all that's going to play. So you can at least start getting a feel for messages and notifications coming from our administrators. And again, like Mr. Dresnick said, thank you to all our administrators for everything over the past 15 months and more. Good luck to all of our kids. SBAC testing has begun at various levels throughout the district, various grade levels, I should say. If it hasn't started yet for your kids, it's starting very soon. But I know my JFK and my Eli Whitney student are going through that. There's some virtual events coming up at Hazardville and Eli Whitney. Those are two of the schools that I liaison with as a Board of Ed rep, so that's why I mention those schools a lot. But there's a virtual bingo at Hazardville this week on Teams on Thursday night, and one at Eli Whitney next week as well. Go to either their Facebook or their EnfieldPTO.com pages and get the links for that. You'll get the Teams invite, and again, that's something fun to do where we're not getting all the kids together in the all-purpose room and having a bingo night and eating pizza and running around and being silly, but the friends can still see each other in a non-academic situation where they can be on Teams but not for school and play bingo with their parents and their friends. And I know that the moms and dads involved in that are going to make it great. Speaking of summer school, a summer school survey went out. It's also on EnfieldPTO.com. It's on the Enfield Public Schools website as well. Please fill this out if you're the parent of any student currently in grades K through 8 by this Friday. It's a quick summer school survey if that's something that you're interested in. Summer school is a 6 or 7 week program starting the first week of July, goes into the first or second week of August. It's 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, 3.5 hours a day. 8 to 11:30, I believe. There'll be transportation if needed. So please take the time to fill that out. I'll also put on the website for the high school that May 12th date at the Annex for Student Vaccination Day for any students 16 and older that wish to do that. That's the day reserved, not open to the public, but reserved for our Enfield Public Schools students 16 and older. And we won't meet before this happens, so happy belated birthday to Mrs. LeBlanc, but also happy Mother's Day to all the moms on the board, all the moms listening, all the moms at home, our Mrs. moms, our room moms at school, our teaching moms, our administrative moms. Happy early Mother's Day to all of you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ryder, I have a question. Last week, JFK PTO had the event at Moe's.
Yes, they did.
Are all those events also posted on EnfieldPTO.com?
Yep. Yes, of course.
So
Yep.
please, anyone could look at this page, and if you see these events with restaurants, it not only helps the restaurant, our local restaurants, but it also helps our PTOs. And it doesn't cost you any more. You're just going in and buying a meal for yourself, and a portion of that is going to be donated to PTOs. So
That is correct. Thank you for bringing that up. It was a good event. It was packed.
Yes, it was.
My wife was the runner for that and stood in line, and everybody had Moe's that night. And
I got there right.
Good times.
I got there right at 5 o'clock, so I kind of beat everybody. But at least I did my share. But that's a big thing for the especially now with the PTOs and everything, and helping our local restaurants. So thank you, sir. Ms. Cushman, would you like any comments? No comments. Mr. Salazar, would you like?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question really because I'm not clear to Mr. Dresnick, if I may. Well, actually, I have two questions, but the first one is, and Mr. Ryder mentioned that right now. So on May 12th, there's the vaccine for students 16 through 18. Do they need to make an appointment or is just show up? I wasn't clear on that.
Sorry, so we sent out a survey, and as part of the survey, we asked if you're basically committing to taking that time. We are actually scheduling the appointments for the students. So actually, Mr. Barassa is in the process of setting up the appointments with Nurse Jess, and then making sure that the students have all the required documentation and/or a parent showing up to them for the actual vaccine. But we are booking the appointments. We're going to make it as easy as possible. If you want a vaccine, you can get one if you're 16 or over on May 12th. Just let us know. When you fill back the survey, there's certain information that we need, and we will book the appointments, and we'll send you a notice with times. And I did forget, I'm glad you asked this question. In addition to emailing all of our students who are eligible, Mr. Barraza also made sure that all the parents of those students were emailed as well. So in the event, so parents, if your son or daughter has come home and not said anything that they're eligible, but you're interested in having them get vaccinated, please check your emails. Any address we had on file, we tried to flood the system because we want to fill up. As I said, Trinity designated over 550 spots for us, and we'd love to fill them all if possible.
Yeah. All right, thank you for that. And then the other question, thank you for presenting the information on the students. Actually, I'm very encouraged by the fact that as great a percentage of our kids are actually back in school. That's very encouraging, and it's bodes well for next year. But the question itself is, I've been reading a lot about school districts throughout the country that have basically lost students from one year to the other. And by lost, I mean not that they don't know where they are, that they've decided to drop from the different districts throughout the country and pursue either in-home education or private education. Is that having an impact on us here? And do we have any percentages or numbers in that regard?
Not at the, we haven't seen sort of a decrease in our enrollment, because don't remember, every student, whether they choose in traditional years, if a parent chose to have their children remain home, they were classified as homeschool students, and they weren't in our numbers, in our total enrollment. They were off, but they had access to our information. This year, everything changed. Whether you're homeschooled or not, everybody fell under the Enfield Public Schools. I thought we'd get through this evening without having this question, and I say that because there's a lot of questions about what the requirements will be next year with regards to remote learners. That the guidance from the state literally came out late this afternoon, and I haven't had the opportunity to read the entire document, and I haven't even had the opportunity to send it to those who have to plan for next year yet, so I don't want to speak out of turn at this point, but just in a quick glimpse on my phone in between meetings before my way here, it appears as if that mandate of districts having to provide a remote option for students is not going to be required next school year. So to answer your question, I don't anticipate, we haven't seen a lot of students unenroll with the Enfield Public Schools to enroll in a private or parochial school. I think their numbers have relatively remained the same as they have pre-pandemic. We haven't seen a lot of students. If anything, we're actually starting to see more students return to the district as opposed to programs that may have been in, say, magnet schools or other ag centers and things like that. So right now, we don't have anything definitively, but we're not anticipating a drastic shift, particularly a decrease in our enrollment going forward. If anything, we think it's going to increase slightly.
So it sounds like great news all around then. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you. Mr. Ungar.
So just a couple of things. I attended.
Thank you for your patience. You too, Ms. Hall. I know you've been asking me for that for a while, so I'm sorry, Mr. Ungar.
No, that's fine.
I want you particular, Mr. Salazar, had asked me more than once for that, so I didn't want to give it to you until I knew exactly what it was.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a couple of things. I did attend the Moe's fundraiser, PTO fundraiser last Wednesday. I happened to just hit it at the peak time because the line was it was long. But it was good to see JFK students there. It was good to see JFK staff there. Even I saw a member of the town council there. But I did see Mr. Yakabuchi there. So good to see Mr. Yakabuchi. I think I like just saying Yakabuchi, but he was there in support of the PTO, and there were so many people there, so it was a good night out. And just quickly, I just want to recognize a couple of members of the staff who were very helpful since our last meeting. I had a couple of things, and there was some paperwork that I needed, and Kathy Zalicki got it to me within minutes. It was some policy, electronic policies and things that she was very, very helpful with. And then I had some procedural questions with regard to finance, and Lorena made some time in her schedule Lorena Cisneros, and she was a big help and truly helped in a very genuine way from her heart. And she walked me through what I needed to know and was extremely helpful. So I just wanted to recognize both of those. We're very fortunate to have staff of that quality in our town. So thank you so much. And that's all I have, Walter.
Thank you, Mr. Ungary. So I want to start with a question for Mr. Drezek with concerns to the remote learners. If for some reason next week someone wants to go back to in school from remote, that's possible. They just have to make arrangements.
So right now, the cutoff is going to be May 3rd for parents to make their mind up whether they want to return in person or remain remote. We're not seeing a lot going the other way. We're seeing more people, obviously, by the numbers coming back in.
Just wanted to let the people
We
know
wanted to
that-
leave that option for a few weeks after we were up and running, because like anything else, word of mouth gets around. And I can only envision kids coming home and telling their friends remotely that school is great and I miss, what we're missing out on. And parents who may have been apprehensive initially may have second thoughts about allowing. So we did extend that date out until May 3rd for students to make up their mind, or parents to make up their mind for their children. We just ask that you contact the school principal to make that arrangement. Anything beyond May 3rd, we've asked all those inquiries to come actually directly into Mr. Longi, and we'll look at those on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so that's good to know. Since we had our meeting 5 weeks ago, I ran across this statement that the governor put out, and I want to read it tonight. So this is the state of Connecticut by His Excellency Ned Lamont, Governor, an official statement. Whereas Connecticut is home to more than 14,000 paraprofessionals who provide services in multiple settings within a school, including instructional support, student activities, and numerous tasks that contribute to educational success. And whereas the support and services provided by paraprofessionals are integral to students' achievement and effective Connecticut schools. And whereas the state of Connecticut and the Connecticut State Department of Education are committed to excellence in education to recognize the role paraprofessionals play in ensuring educational success. And therefore, I, Ned Lamont, Governor of the State of Connecticut, do proclaim April 7th, 2021 as Paraprofessional Appreciation Day in the state of Connecticut, signed by Governor Ned Lamont on that day. So just I wanted to add my signature to this proclamation that paraprofessionals are important, and I wanted to recognize them, that they had their day, they had a day proclaimed to them, and we missed it at our last meeting, and we haven't had a meeting since. So, and I do want to also reach out to all the staff and everybody who's made April 19th possible. I'm glad that we're at least 4 days back. I'm looking at the numbers that Mr. Drezek gave us. That was great to hear too. So kudos to everybody. I support you all. I will try to sneak in, or not sneak in. I will make an appointment to come in when the time's allowed it in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. I'll have news from each school coming back. So, and with that, I will close board member comments. Number 10, unfinished business. We have none. Number 11, new business. A motion to approve 6,000 series first reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Salazar, seconded by Mr. Ryder. Discussion, Mr. Salazar, would you like to make any comments? Or?
Sure. I guess I can summarize the proposal before us. The members of the policy committee have been meeting over the last three meetings, and the packet that you have in front of you is been reviewed and agreed upon by all the members of the committee. We think it represents all of the needs in terms of policies for the 6,000 series that the district has, and it was voted on unanimously to bring it in front of the board.
And thank you for all the work that the policy committee's done in these last years to get our policy book up to date. So with that, any other comments? Could we have roll call, please?
Yes.
No, that's our answer.
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Salazar?
4.
Mrs. Thurston? Yes. Mr. Ungary?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Chairman Krizel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Number 12, board committee reports. Curriculum did not have a meeting last Thursday, so their next meeting, I think, is in May. I should have looked it up.
22.
May when? May
22nd.
22nd? Okay, thank you. Finance, Mr. Ungary.
The Finance Committee did meet on April 19th. So I'll be presenting to the board here the certification of expenditures and certification of grants and Head Start expenditures resultant from that meeting.
All right, that's our next.
Yep.
Okay. Policy Committee, Mr. Salazar, I guess you already gave an update, but
Yeah, well, the only thing I would add to that is that this completes the policy book, the review entirely. As of right now, that we're aware of, there are no other policies that CAVE is requiring or requesting that we take into account.
great. Leadership will be next Thursday. I think the time was 5 p.m., but we'll just wait for your calendars and you'll see.
Thursday or Tuesday, Walter?
Next Thursday, May 6th. Thank you. Joint facilities met last week. We are moving ahead with the 2 roofs for Hazardville and also for Eli Whitney. Plans are being finalized right now through the town and hopefully be out to bid in the next couple of weeks so we can get some fair market bids on those. JFK isn't meeting again until next Thursday, but the thing is, what I'm hearing, things are going strong and everything is still on schedule. Joint security,
We next meet in June.
next week in June. Joint insurance met last Tuesday, and what we got from the meeting, it was the technology was a little difficult, but that we are on track, and the hard work we've done in that committee over the last years is paying off well. So, Youth Mental Health and Wellness Advisory is Mr. LeBlanc, and he's not here. And that's all the committees. So we need number 13, approval of minutes, regular Board of Ed meeting minutes, March 23rd, 2021. Moved by Ms. LeBlanc, seconded by Ms. Thurston. Any discussion? All in favor? And I see Ms. Hall's hand, so that's 8 in favor, 0 against. And number 13, special Board of Ed meeting minutes for April 1st, 2021. Moved by Ms. LeBlanc, seconded by Ms. Thurston. Any discussion? All in favor? 8 in favor, 0 against. Thank you. And number 14, approval of accounts and payroll for month of March 2021. Mr. Ungary.
So this is for the Enfield Public Schools, Enfield, Connecticut, fiscal year 2020-2021. Certification of expenditures. The Finance Committee met on April 19th, 2021 to review financial statements for the month of March year-to-date and to examine various documents related to finance. Our review concluded that there is nothing significant to report to the board. I move that we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. I hereby certify that in the month of March, total expenditures amount to $6,267,611.15, broken down between payroll totaling $4,219,562.35 and other accounts totaling $2,048,048.80. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented.
Motion by Mr. Ungary, seconded by Ms. Thurston. Any discussion? Show of hands. All in favor? 8 in favor, 0 against. Mr. Ungar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Enfield Public Schools, Enfield, Connecticut, fiscal year 2020-2021, certification of grants and Head Start expenditures. The Finance Committee met on April 19th, 2021 to review financial statements for grants during the month of March year to date and to examine various documents related to finances. Our review concluded that there was nothing significant to report to the board. I move that we accept the superintendent's certification as follows. I hereby certify that in the month of March, the total grant and Head Start expenditures amount to $324,794.41, broken down between payroll totaling $260,164.42 and other accounts totaling $64,629.99. All payments have been made in accordance with the approved budget and are properly accounted for within the books of accounts. Copies of approval for check invoices are properly documented.
Motion by Mr. Ungar, seconded by Ms. Thurston. Any discussion? All in favor? We have 8 in favor, 0 against. And I just want to add a finance note that the council did pass the next next fiscal year budget, and with the assumption that if the state does give us additional funds, that they will just pass them through to us. So we want to thank the council for that. And that was 14. Number 15, correspondence and communications.
No, there's nothing.
Nothing. Number 16, executive session. We have none.
Hold on.
Number 17,
Before she
adjournment.
does that, I just want to share with the board, because your policy mandates that we meet on the second and fourth Tuesday. All of us this evening have missed out on the opportunity to watch Enfield High School play Towland at the Yard Goat Stadium. And thanks to you guys having this meeting, I wasn't able to coach third base like Mr. Goucher told me I could. But that said, they were down 1-0 in the fourth, and they just tied it up. So we wanted to end on a good note.
I do apologize for that. We should have called this meeting. We could have had the meeting down there, so it's my fault. So, motion to adjourn by Ms. Thurston, seconded by Mr. Ryder. All in favor?
I just wanted to remind
Yes.
about Teacher Appreciation Week next week.
Yes, please.
That's all.
Yes, great. Our teachers are number one. Thank you. Good night.